Hello and welcome to Woodshed Reviews, where we look at films old and new, good and bad. And tonight we're going to take a look at the new Expendables film, Expendables 4.
Expend 4 bills. We'll go with Expendables 4.
Sounds a bit better.
Yeah. Okay, so this was your choice. I hadn't seen 2 and 3. I saw 1 back in the day, a long time ago. When did that come out?
2010 now, is it?
A lifetime ago.
It's nearly 10 years since the last Expendables film.
Yeah, so an unexpected entry into the franchise, but one you're more familiar with.
Yeah, apparently this one started off, it's going to be a spin-off film called A Christmas Story, all about Jason Statham's character, who's called Christmas.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about that a few years ago, and they just ended up calling it Expendables 4.
So it was your choice to go and see it.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and watch 1, 2 and 3 this week. Thanks for that.
You did your homework?
Yeah.
So you know all the plot intricacies?
Oh yeah, aye. It's very detailed. So we'll maybe go over that before we get into Expendables 4, will we?
Yeah, we'll look back.
We look back on this franchise.
They are the world's greatest mercenaries. The only life they've ever known is war. The only loyalty they've ever had is to each other.
So Expendables 1 was directed by Stallone, written
Yes.
by Stallone. Yeah, that was a bit of interest, wasn't it? Because that was the first time we saw Schwarzenegger, Willis and Sly all together.
But a little underwhelming as it came to it. Yeah, one scene. Yeah.
Schwarzenegger had finished, or was about to finish, his term as governor. So this was his return back to movies.
I think it feels like they had him for like one afternoon. You've got Arnie for 2 hours. Go.
I'm busy anyway, so give this job to my friend here. He loves playing in the jungle, right?
Right. That's right.
Hey, why don't we have dinner?
Sure, when?
In 1,000 years.
Too soon.
What's his fucking problem?
He wants to be president.
I guess the broader concept was, I think with Expendables was let's do an old school back to basics action film with some of your favourite icons from the 80s and 90s. So you've got obviously Sly and Arnie and Bruce Willis along with Dolph Lundgren and a few sort of newer faces as well.
Yeah.
Of the first 3, I think it was the most consistent film. It wasn't great, but it did what it needed to do, I guess.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I watch it now and again. Because, you know, they did a lot of practical stunts in it, some good fight scenes, and Stallone even broke his neck fighting Steve Austin in it.
All right. Don't make film stars like that these days. Not a great story, characters and stuff like that, but, you know, basic and kind of that part fits into that part there. That'll do.
Unloaded?
Expendables 2, a few years later, that kind of delivered on the promise a little more of the action stars all kind of congregating together and doing a bit of action. I mean, again, it wasn't great, but possibly slightly better film, I would say.
Yeah, I enjoyed it more. It was great to see Van Damme in it, playing a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he was clearly enjoying himself in the role.
Over so soon. I want my money's worth. Come on, get up. Coming right up. Going back down.
Nice fight scene with him and Stallone at the end, giving it all.
Yeah.
So that was entertaining.
Yeah, and a little more from Arnie and Willis in this one. Arnie was chomping the scenery as much as he was chomping his cigar.
Yeah, they do the best with the lines they're given.
I guess so, yeah.
And these guys were always good at making the best out of bad lines.
Yeah, true. There's plenty of that in the second one, definitely. It definitely goes more into kind of almost comedy at places.
Yeah, Arnie has to work in these lines.
I'm almost out. I'll be back.
You've been back enough.
I'll be back. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah, it feels like Sly's doing all the hard work here and Arnie just turns up and says, I'm going to have some fun. And then the third one, I was reading up some stuff, fans kind of didn't take so well to the third one as the first two.
No, it was a PG-13 in the States, and
Right.
I think it was maybe a 12A here at the cinema, I can't remember. But it's a 15 on Blu-ray.
Yeah, they tend to kind of like release it with all the extra stuff that you missed in the cinema because they were trying to get the bums on seats, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little tactic.
Yeah. So I didn't mind the third one too much.
Yeah, I quite liked it. I don't know. I would swither between whether second and third was my favourite because mainly Mel Gibson's performance as our bad guy.
Oh, come on, stand up. You feel better. Lose the armor. I want you to feel this.
He's not in it much in the first sort of hour or so, but when he comes on, it's like it kind of makes a film for me.
Yeah.
And that kind of pulled me through with the third one, I think. So, yeah, ups and downs. Again, you know, first one was probably the most consistent in that kind of regard, but I had a bit more fun with 2 and 3, I think.
Yeah.
So that led us on to Expendables 4, nearly 10 years later.
So yeah, so this was in development for a while. I think it was postponed due to COVID and things like that.
Yeah.
Kind of unexpected, and hoping for at least some entertainment with our favourite stars, but...
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I mean, most of them are missing from this film.
Yeah, sadly no Willis. And
Schwarzenegger.
yeah,
Even Harrison Ford, who made an appearance in the last one.
Jet Li. Antonio Banderas has sat this one out because we've got a son. So I'm wondering if that's because he just passed on the script.
Possibly, and I think you can understand why. Yeah, and the first coming out of it, we saw it last night, and I was like, did we see a real movie?
Yeah.
In places it felt like this was some sort of well-made fan film for YouTube or something like that. In places.
That's a good way to put it. A lot of CGI enhanced stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of it not really that believable.
Not great, no.
It looked a bit creaky.
It definitely felt rushed.
Yeah.
And cheap. And it was relying on that more and more than the previous films. Well, having watched all 4 of them this week, you kind of notice that is kind of creeping in to it. The more CGI or green screening or whatever, compositing or whatever's kind of doing more and more. When it's kind of been set up, the first one was, hey, let's get back to basics. There's been too much of this over the top, overstuffed CGI kind of nonsense and stuff. Let's have a proper grounded action film. And now they're kind of looking more and more like a Fast and Furious film or something like that.
I thought maybe they were doing it because maybe the actors are getting older and they can't do all those stunts, so we only see them in close up, cut to wider shots for the action stuff. But then again, you got Jason Statham, who's capable of doing some good stuff.
Yeah, and there's a few younger actors there as well, but obviously a few of the old stalwarts, particularly Stallone and Dolph Lundgren, are in it. But Stallone's not really in it very much at all.
No, his character gets killed off.
Killed off about half an hour in, and then that's him out of it until the final, for literally 5 minutes, is it? When he swoops in to save the day.
Yeah, so he sat most of it out.
Yeah, so was there a reason for that?
Because this was supposed to be a spin-off film, possibly had something to do with that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a Jason Statham Expendables film.
Which it kind of is, but it's not like a passing of the torch or anything like that, because Stallone's still kind of ready for action at the end, and as if he's going to go on for Expendables 5, and, I'll be back for that. It's not like, he's not properly killed off, and he's not kind of retiring from it, even though he'd be quite right to at this stage. It's definitely a young man's game. So it's a strange one that he sits basically an hour plus out of the film. I don't know how long it was. It felt quite short.
Yeah.
To be fair.
He must have had other things to do.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I was thinking in this particular film, the script was not so good. It felt like an early draft. There's a lot of attempts at humour in it, and none of it really landed.
I think the first sort of 20 minutes or so, we've got a lot of stuff mainly between Statham and Stallone, and also throw Megan Fox into the mix. And we've got all this kind of banter and stuff going on, and they go on this escapade to find his ring, his lucky ring, which has kind of been threaded through the previous films.
You see, what we have here is a matter of humiliation and human kindness. My friend here loves his ring for all of his stupid reasons. And it would be very nice and civilized if you gents would understand that principle.
Yeah, they go on this kind of like 20-minute, 30-minute escapade to find this ring and stuff.
Yeah, because he lost the ring in a bet to a biker in an
Fair and square?
Fair and square by the sounds of it, in an arm wrestle competition.
Thumb wrestling.
So he wants the ring back.
Which is fair. He wakens up and he wants his ring back. So they go to the pub, the bar that we were at that night before.
Brings Jason Statham, Christmas, to do basically the confrontation with the bikers, and he just sits back because he's got sore back.
Since you choose to be, Barney, what's the word?
Obstinate.
Too long.
Dumbbells.
Dumbbells. You leave me no other choice, Dinky.
Instead of trying to win it back or do something creative with that, he asks for it back, and the guy's like, no, you lost it fair and square. And so Jason Statham then beats them all up with knuckle dusters, causing quite grievous bodily injuries. And this is our good guys.
Yeah.
Stallone sort of sits back and goes, yeah, you deserve that, you know, sort of thing. And it's like, okay. And it gets even worse from that. I don't know if we'll get into it just now, but...
Yeah, well, the guy he had a grievance with was a small guy,
Yeah.
but quite tough.
Yeah.
And we find out in the end he kidnapped him and stowed him away on the plane.
To use his body as a decoy when the plane crashed to fake his own death.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my, that's pretty dark when you lay it out like that. And this is our hero, you know. It's not like this is someone who deserved what happened to him. Yeah.
At least they didn't show that aspect.
No, I mean, they could have revealed there was something about him that, like, this is an absolute piece of dirt, you know, that maybe you wouldn't kind of begrudge what happened to him. But from what it is, he's just a guy at a bar, you know, part of a gang, having a beer, wins a ring fair and square, and ends up dying for it, quite gruesomely.
Fantasies.
It's a little more escalation in this story now. It's a bit more world-bearing consequences.
Our bad guy's led by, we find out, Andy Garcia.
Yeah, eventually he's like a CIA agent, but he's the operative that they're looking for by the name Ocelot. Kind of saw that coming. I kind of twigged a little bit, like, okay, it's going to be someone that we know, obviously.
I was hoping for a different actor, maybe an exciting reveal at the end.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
That would be creative and interesting.
Yeah. It's high stakes here, even though it doesn't feel like it. He's basically trying to start World War III.
Yeah, set off an American nuke on Russian territory via a sort of a warboat. So it's a lot more high stakes than the previous films, which I always liked. It was a little bit more, like the first film's just like set on a small island, and it's like, you know, the army that have kind of taken over that and are terrorising the sort of natives and all that kind of stuff, and they're just going in to sort that out. Whereas this one is like, obviously, these days, when it's a film like this, it has to be, you know, world-ending consequences and stuff like that.
It should have felt like high stakes. Like, you should have felt like there was a ticking bomb, but you didn't, and there's just like tension.
Yeah, I think because there's no sort of outward source looking in on this, you know, like the Russian military kind of seeing something popping up and they're going to DEFCON 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's none of that. It's just all set on the boat for the last sort of half of the film or something like that. So it just feels very small and contained, but supposed to be really huge and overpowering. And that never really kind of gels.
No.
And Andy Garcia is, for me, each of the films has had, like, you know, a notable actor playing the main bad guy. You had Eric Roberts in the first one, as you said, Jean-Claude Van Damme in the second, and my man Mel Gibson in the third one. Andy Garcia is definitely that quality of kind of actor, but he's not given anywhere near enough material or screen time to make it shine.
You know, I was looking forward to seeing Megan Fox in a kind of action film. She kind of lends herself into that kind of role, but you know, she falls kind of flat.
Yeah, she's not really believable as the leader of this Expendables squad, really, unfortunately. And, you know, not in the way that you had someone like Ronda Rousey from a previous film. You thought, okay, that fits in there. Whereas her character is fine to have her in it, but trying to make her the leader of this squad and stuff just felt like, yeah, I'm not believing it.
She's not really dressed for the occasion.
No, she's not without her makeup bag or a halter top at any opportunity. Yeah, she just kind of feel like she's thrown in there for the sort of eye candy for, you know, people like us.
I want in. Coming with you.
Oh, I'm sorry. You weren't invited.
Well, won't you be lonely without me?
No. There's lots of other boys on the mission.
50 Cent, I was like, oh, 50 Cent's in it. But then he doesn't do anything. He kind of pops up and says hi, and Sly's like, yeah, this is my old buddy from missions before. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, he had Tony Jaa as well, who's a great martial artist.
Yeah.
His character didn't amount to too much.
Yeah, that was another one where he's kind of like, he's left this life behind and he can't get involved because if he unleashes his alter ego, then, you know, he can never go back. And so you're thinking, oh, great, this is going to be amazing, you know. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And the same with Dolph Lundgren. He's kind of on the straight and narrow, and you see him taking a drink.
A good swig of his whiskey, yeah, or whatever.
Good to be back.
Like, he was more interested in the first film, when he's like a little bit Colonel Kurtz, or a little bit like his character in Cyborg, I guess, at the start, who is a little bit Colonel Kurtz. So there's definitely layers going on there. Yeah, but he, have I got that wrong? No, he isn't Cyborg.
He's not in Cyborg.
Who's it in Cyborg?
That's Van Damme.
Van Damme. Cut that out. No, who's a...
He played Universal Soldier?
Universal Soldier. Sorry, that's the one I was thinking of. Okay, well, I'll do that again.
Too late.
Right, Universal Soldier. He's it started Universal Soldier where he's gone a bit Colonel Kurtz, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
After that, he's just kind of like lumbering in the background for like 2, 3, and 4. He doesn't really have a lot to do.
They could have done a lot more of this. They didn't have to, show off with tons of CGI stuff. They could have done a lot of practical stuff.
Yeah. It feels like as it kind of goes on, like I think I was saying, like, particularly with like 3 and 4, it gets into kind of looking like video game kind of territory in places, and it's not great, it's not well done, and it's not appropriate for a film which was, I guess, at its roots was trying to be a little more kind of grounded.
Yeah, because the first film was directed by Stallone, who knows the action genre.
Yeah.
And the second film was directed by Simon West, who did Con Air.
Con Air, yeah.
So they were, kind of old school.
Yeah, they knew what they're doing, and those were, as much as like I'm saying, the first Expendables, not great, but consistent, knew what it was doing, and all that kind of stuff. This one just kind of feels all over the place and that kind of stuff. It's stretching everyone far too thin.
Yeah.
It doesn't have this sort of names. I mean, the third one was maybe a bit overstuffed and overfull. This one just feels like everyone's just disappeared, and that's difficult. I guess they're maybe hoping for it to be a next generation thing and turn it into, a franchise of that ilk.
Yeah, but you got that impression of the third one. They had the new blood, and you thought, and none of those faces popped up.
Yeah, they spent like an hour kind of recruiting all these new guys, and no one's in it, for the fourth one. But there has been quite a big gap. Maybe if they managed to get this out 2 or 3 years later, possibly we might have had something like that. But yeah, very. I didn't go in with great expectations for this, and those expectations were definitely met.
Yeah.
Certainly the weakest of the 4 films by quite a margin, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Sadly, yeah, a bit disappointing.
Expendables, pretty low one for me. I think 1 or 1.5. I'll give it 1.5. I'll be kind.
How did it earn 1.5?
How did it earn 1.5? Oh yeah, that's true. I say 1.5. I really couldn't justify why I'm giving it 1.5. It's possibly. Sorry, give it 1. It's pretty bad.
Do you think somewhere down the line it'll be so bad it's good?
Well, I don't even think it's that, because like when it goes over the top with some stuff like the motorbike sequence on the ship and stuff, it's not like a Fast and Furious film where you're kind of like, oh, that was so ridiculous, but it's funny, and then it's over the top. It just feels silly. So I don't know if it's going to be in that category.
Yeah,
possibly. So yeah, you've talked me down from a 1.5 to a 1. So.
I think I'll go with 1 as well. I wanted it to be higher, but it's 1 for seeing a bit of Stallone in it. Some action moments were okay-ish, and some lines were okay-ish.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. Some bits of this film were okay-ish. Yeah, yeah, that sounds fair enough. Again, it's just sort of dissipated in my mind almost immediately.
Yeah, there was a idea for a good story there, but it just...
Yeah, it feels like, 10 years after the last one, none of the cast really are showing up beyond Sly and Statham. It's too overstuffed with CGI, and no one really gets a fair shake of the stick in terms of characterization. Not even our bad guy, and you've got some quality, sort of cast there, but not used well.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no tension.
So we'll go from worst to best. So, I mean, Expendables 4 is definitely, I think, by a considerable chalk, is the worst. Because I'd watched 1 and 3 this week, and I was like, yeah, not great, but, fine in places. And now I've got a renewed respect for them after seeing Expendables 4. So, yeah, your bottom?
4.
4 as well, yeah, okay.
Oh, I always liked this tattoo.
So did your brother.
Next one.
Yeah, I'm going to say the first Expendables, even though I think it's the most consistent of all the films. But it kind of doesn't really come through with the premise of having all your favourite actors and action stars together and all that stuff. But it's consistent enough, so I'm going to put that third.
Cool. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I quite like the original trilogy, kind of average, slightly above average set of films.
Yeah.
I would probably go for Expendables 3.
Okay.
It's just because it's watered down a wee bit compared to the first two.
Yeah.
Would you like to hold my gun?
So my second place would be Expendables 2. I think it's probably better in places than my first place one, if you like, but overall it kind of descends a little bit into a bit of nonsense at the end. I think when Arnie turns up and he's chomping his cigar and shooting his gun and stuff.
Trench! Get in!
Your shoe is bigger than this car.
This kind of comes down a little bit, but still enjoyable. Better moments than 1, but not as consistent.
I'll put Expendables as my number 2. Good to see our heroes from the 80s, 90s back in action.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's plenty to enjoy.
Yep, sure. And I'm going to be controversial and say my favourite of the series is Expendables 3. Just, I think, purely for the Mel Gibson aspect of it, which really kind of, I was kind of zoning out of the first hour or so, and then when he kind of appears, kind of pulled me back into it and kind of started to enjoy it a little more.
It can't be.
We were close once. We started this whole Expendables thing together, but we had a falling out.
Similar to the second one, there was bits I enjoyed and kind of would zone out and then come back into it and stuff. So my feeling of the difference between 1, 2, and 3 is like, microscopic.
Yeah, sure.
So this ranking is not really. I'll probably change my mind tomorrow.
The first 3 films, they're all kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
To some degree. Yeah, and obviously my top one is Expendables 2. It's just great to see Van Damme as a bad guy again.
Are you afraid of me? No, I'm not. You should be.
I'm never a fan of this. The best one is this, but my favourite is this. But I think you're probably right. I think the best one is Expendables 2, but my favourite is Expendables 3. So.
You're seriously smoking nuts of aviation fuel?
Well, we'll be back for Expendables 5. Who knows? But if there are, we promise that we'll be here for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Can only be better.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, but that's all we've got for today. We'll see you next time.
Hasta la vista.
Yippee-ki-yay.